Check out celebrations in the streets, colorful parades. This is Rio, it's Carnivale. It's like 46 BC Rome, when Julius Caesar is doing victory laps, parades, triumphal celebrations, banquets for all the people. Are these people saying Caesar is like a king? He came, he saw, he conquered. It's the kingdom of Caesar? But this is still the Republic. Caesar holds a Republic title. It's not king. We still have a Senate, the old Roman law. But these celebrations are causing kingmaker syndrome. With a lot of people, Caesar was popular. He's reshaping law, remaking the Senate, reworking the calendar, and he refuses to punish his enemies. And what about some Roman senators who are becoming knife sharpeners? In this classical lesson, we track the final years of Caesar sensation. I'm Mr. Hull. This is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom. We take a classical approach to history. We ground ourselves in what matters, like the Caesar sensation outshining the old Republic, even replacing it. The kingdom of Caesar could be a concern, a major change, a shift. So by the end of this lesson, you will learn those final 2 years, 46, 45 BC, how Caesar is reworking every republic institution in Rome. You can judge Caesar for yourself based on his accomplishments, his actions, and how he uses power and mercy to improve Roman civilization. Let's begin. If we set the board first, the whole Mediterranean Sea, 46 BC in Rome, the civil wars are technically over. The city actually was in rough shape, lacking Caesar in leadership and the debt that's strangling the economy. The slums are overflowing. The Senate is kind of traumatized and confused. But standing over it now, returning to Rome, is Gaius Julius Caesar. And he's got the Roman title of dictator. And when he's in town, he's also the consul. So it sounds like we still have a republic, but you know dictator means something very different in 46 BC in Rome. In the constitutional Roman system, the dictator was magistratus extraordinarius, an emergency office for a crisis. The old Roman ways would be suspended, and mainly that means veto. There are no vetoes, and you don't need the Senate to approve the dictator. They can move swiftly, but this title is only for a crisis, an emergency. An ironclad rule applies over the dictator title. It's a 6-month maximum. The moment the crisis is resolved, you resign. And if you're coming here from lesson 45, you knew that the old Republic dictator Cincinnatus, he was virtuous. He gave back the power within days of being dictator. He solved the problem, turned the power back over, and inspired George Washington to do the same after our young country was solid on its foot. Even Sulla, the Roman bloodthirsty strongman who used the dictatorship beyond the 6 months. He executed thousands of political enemies. Even Sulla eventually surrendered the dictator power. So we should keep that in mind. The shock in this lesson is what happens when one man decides that the time limit doesn't apply. The emergency no longer is part of this equation. So we've got some people we need to watch. Cicero, Marcus Tullius Cicero, the greatest Roman orator. a lifelong defender of the Republic, the old Republic. In 46 BC, he is a marginalized man. He's basically retreated to his library to kind of lay low and write philosophy because he's lost his levers of political power. He wrote the Academica during this period and some other things that you might, you're a classical scholar, you might dig into what is going on with Cicero. But in the Senate, I ask you now, does he sharpen his knife? Will he be part of the plot? Next is Cleopatra the Seventh, currently sailing towards Rome in her big fancy barge. Everyone's got kingmaker syndrome. Maybe Marc Antony would be worth watching now. Caesar's most ferocious military lieutenant and co-consul in 44 BC will be Marc Antony. He is an absolute weapon in the battlefield. People love Marc Antony. His troops do. And as civilian administrator of Rome, he is kind of a disaster when it comes to his appetites and reckless excess. He has a personality. We'll keep an eye on him. And finally, another important man that we need to watch besides Caesar is Brutus. Do you know Brutus? Marcus Junius Brutus was pardoned as an enemy of Caesar. So was Cicero. So Pompey would have been too. But let's look at Brutus's pardon, his mercy, the clemency, clementia. Brutus is a man that Caesar treats with a special personal warmth and favor. We've come to conclude that they are very close, best friends. Brutus has some pride from the past. Brutus has a special family line tracing back to Lucius Junius Brutus, the Roman hero who expelled Tarquin the Proud in 509 BC. You caught that in lesson 44. That's the founding of the Republic. And they said, no king ever. Rome will never have a king. His name is a promise made to history. A descendant is Brutus. So watching these people, watching Rome, we need to watch Caesar fix Rome because now he is in charge. He is doing victory laps. But the problems like debt, the credit market is frozen, and radical politicians within the Caesar faction are demanding the Novae Tabulae. That's a complete cancellation of debts, a new table, a new tablet, essentially, and Caesar says no. He forces creditors to accept property as payment valued at pre-war prices. He decrees that any interest already paid must be deducted from the principal, and 1/4 of the outstanding Roman debt disappears immediately. He also attacks the problem with the grain dole, D-O-L-E. What is the dole? You know that politicians have been handing out free grain to buy votes. What? Politicians are buying votes, giving favors. Well, this recipient list, the dole, had grown so much, so vast. Now, does this ever happen today? But Rome's got 320,000 people on the grain dole. Caesar slashes that more than half, 150,000 on the grain dole. He conducts a street-by-street census, removing the ineligible from the grain dole and shipping the urban poor to new colonies like in Carthage and Corinth. And he solves 3 problems all at once. He clears the slums. He gives land to the veterans, the troops, and he Romanizes the provinces. Now here's a good one, the calendar. Did you know about Julius Caesar fixing the calendar in 46 BC, the Roman lunar calendar? What's a lunar calendar? You know, the moon calendar operates during moon shifts, but the moon doesn't shift with our normal years. 12 months in a year is not going to work. because by 46 BC, it was 3 months behind schedule. So harvest festivals were happening before the harvest. Religious rites were severely misaligned with, all the religious rites were way off the calendar. So Caesar fixes it, does some math. He's been to Alexandria, right? Because Sosigenes of Alexandria was an astronomer, helped build the 365.25 day calendar. Does that sound familiar to you? A solar year for the calendar, not the moon. And a leap day every 4 years. We still do that. We call it the Julian Calendar, and it remained the dominant calendar of Western civilization for 1,600 years after this point, until the Gregorian reform of 1582. The Gregorian calendar is the one we use now. So anyway, Caesar synchronizes this to the solar cycle, and he goes ahead and adds days to the year 46 BC. Yes, 46 BC was 445 days long. The Roman called it the Annus Confucianus. Do you know Latin? You probably don't need to, because it's the year of confusion. That would be disorienting. What do you think? One man extended the calendar year, and Rome had to live through. It gave Caesar extra time for his victory laps, his power play, but look at, he's fixing things up, right? What do you like so far that Caesar has done? Do you like any of these? Would you like somebody like Caesar to fix? Click the like button if you haven't. Click subscribe. It really helps Classical Kingdoms, and we appreciate it. We like you, and let's keep going, because Caesar shows authority over time itself. And it makes for the idea that Caesar is unstoppable when he adds a year. When he adds so many days to the year 46 BC. But let's escalate this a little further, because spectacles that Caesar is using are really to announce his supremacy, right? The Quadruple Triumph of 46 BC. Quadruple. Most victorious Roman generals up to this point would celebrate one triumph like once in a lifetime. You remember lesson 49, Pompey had his big triumph coming back from the provinces like Judea, establishing Roman authority in Judea. And with the wealth he brought in his triumph, he had the pearls arranged to make a portrait of him. So this is the type of thing Caesar is trying to create. Caesar sensation. Let's have a quadruple triumph. And that would outdo, because Pompey actually did this probably 3 times. Caesar's going to celebrate 4 in 1 month. He stages consecutive processions. He's got Gaul, right? Egypt, Pontus, and Africa. The scale of these is just astonishing. For one, he sets 22,000 dining couches across Rome for public banquets. He stages a mock naval battle. Those are called Naumachia. The Naumachia, with 4,000 oarsmen, 2,000 fighting men, they would fill up the arenas with water. The Colosseum's not built yet, and that will be a spectacular place for the new Naumachia when they do that. We'll get to that in a later lesson. But 1,000 soldiers could be used to stage an infantry battle for the public games. Cavalry engagement, 200 horsemen. These military spectacular events, the shows, people loved it. He brought 40 elephants up from Africa, marching through the streets of Rome. Now that was for Africa. What about the Gallic triumph? The Gaul triumph was the most iconic. The Gallic triumph, back in lesson 51, you learned about Vercingetorix. He surrendered to Caesar at the siege of Alesia, trying to show honor. But for the past 6 years, he's been rotting in the Tullianum stone pit, the Tullianum prison at the base at the Capitoline Hill, which I've been inside. There is no light that comes in there. He's been rotting there in the dark for 6 years. Rome has been preserving him like a trophy for this exact moment, when the guards drag him out in chains and parade him down the main drag, the Via Sacra, the sacred way, by the forum where everybody can see. And what are they looking at? This is the procession of Julius Caesar's power. When it reaches the temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, that's the temple at the top of the Capitoline Hill. That's the Capitol Hill. That's the temple where laws have to be blessed and approved by the divine. But this is where Vercingetorix was led away and ceremoniously strangled. The Pontic Triumph is celebrating the speed at which Caesar's campaign had to go against Pharnaces of Pontus at the Battle of Zela. Placards were displaying the 3 favorite words that everybody has: Veni, Vidi, Vici, or Veni, Vidi, Vici. Veni, Vidi, Vici is the real Latin way to pronounce it. I came, I saw, I conquered. That's Julius Caesar. But during the African triumph, something kind of cracks. Is this kingmaker syndrome causing problems? Because officially, Caesar had celebrated defeating King Juba I of Numidia. A legitimate foreign conquest like these others, but the Roman crowd knew the truth of it. What's behind the African campaign was a civil war against the final senators defending the old republic. This is something Caesar cannot erase or hide. This will include Cato. You've been hearing about Cato. There are 20 paintings showing Roman senators in defeat and death, including Lucius Scipio, but Cato being painted in humiliation. The cabbage farmer, the grandson of Cato the Elder, the legacy. According to historian Appian, the crowd audibly groans. There's a notable reaction against this overly powerful military spectacle. As if, why didn't you do this with Vercingetorix sitting in a dark prison for 6 years? But is there public pushback? The Caesar sensation will have limits. He's included the faces of dead Roman senators and today's Roman senators. And some people in the crowd, they're looking into the eyes. And they're wondering, at this exact moment, you could sense the crisis is unfolding. In North Africa, the last great champion of the Republic is surrounded, and that was Marcus Porcius Cato, Cato the Younger. Caesar's most morally rigid enemy. And when we say morally, that's the mos maiorum, the old Roman ways, the old austere Roman. He fought to preserve the old Senate, the Constitution, the 12 tables. But at the Battle of Thapsus in April of 46 BC, the last of this old Republican army was destroyed. Caesar wanted Cato alive. Why? Why would he want Cato alive? What are you seeing here in these parades? But Caesar would have pardoned him. The parade would have been different. He would have showed mercy and clemency. And that's what Brutus got. That's what Cicero got. Cicero and Brutus were both fighting against Caesar at Pharsalus. Why can't we get Cato alive? What happens to Cato? Cato realizes that you can only get mercy from someone more powerful. A king gives mercy to his subject. A master gives mercy to his slave. So when Caesar pardons an enemy, like Brutus was against him at Pharsalus, Pompey would have been given mercy, but pardoning Cato is going to be tough. Cato does not want to lose his dignitas, does not want to replace his dignitas with an unpayable debt. Do you think Brutus has an unpayable debt right now? Mercy could be a political weapon if Julius Caesar pardons a humiliated enemy like Cato. Cato would keep his life, would keep his family fortune, would keep his family status, but he would be Caesar's trophy of clemency, of magnanimity. Cato refuses to legitimize this Julius Caesar. So he retreats to the coastal city of Utica after losing this battle. He shares a final dinner with his friends, and he speaks only of Stoic philosophy. He retires to his quarters and he's reading Plato's Phaedo. Phaedo, that's the dialogue talking about Socrates in the final moments of his life, arguing for immortality of the soul. And it declares that the philosopher's duty is to virtue, not survival. Oh, well, I guess we're seeing that, and we're going to see it some more. In the next lesson 55, this philosophy, the Stoicism, does matter. But in the early morning, Cato draws his sword and stabs himself in the abdomen, which is a wound, doesn't kill him. His servants burst in, and a physician actually tries to stitch him up. As soon as they leave, Cato rips the stitches apart and tries to just injure himself so badly. And we did a deep dive because Rome is going to be dealing with the loss of Cato, and they have to deal with the way he did it. It's sending a message. Cicero publishes a eulogy titled Cato. He praises him as the ultimate Roman and the last free man. Cicero, doesn't seem like a good idea. Cicero, is he sharpening a knife, by the way? Do you think Cato has become immortal? Kind of like Socrates, the ghost of the last Republican choosing death over subjugation. Haunting. Well, Caesar is not slowed down. He starts remodeling the city. If you remember, the Senate house burned down in 52 BC. The Curia Cornelia needs renovations. Julius Caesar commissions a replacement, the Curia Julia. Yes, Julius. He changes the entire physical orientation of the Senate house so that it faces an ancient kind of civic heart of Rome. The new Curia Julia is going to face, the new building aligns to face Caesar's private forum. In a monument to himself, the Senate now literally will be looking up at Caesar's house. It's under construction right now. Caesar fills the new Senate with more senators. So he's reworking the Senate by adding 300 more seats. If we can take the number to 900 senators, he's going to pack it with his military officers, his wealthy equestrians, his friends and elites from Gaul, from Spain, from all over the world. The Optimates, which are the old aristocratic families, are now so outnumbered. Remember Julius Caesar's the Populare. The Senate is no longer really an effective kind of deliberative governing body. They're just a rubber stamp with 900 faces. Caesar is systematically placing statues of himself all over the city. Rome's temples, Rome's public squares are going to see statues of Julius Caesar, even on the Capitoline Hill. That's not normal. Now, it was done. Pompey had statues to himself, but they weren't called the invincible God because one statue has the inscription, we think, invincible God. Pompey had the statue. He's holding the world in his hand. Pompey the Great. He's called the Great for a reason, but the famous statue of him looking Greek, Hellenistic style, which means ideal, kingly, muscular. And when he's holding the globe of the world, how does Julius Caesar try to outdo that? Well, Pompey had placed that statue in his new Curia. It was a consecrated Curia. It was being used for Senate meetings, and it was right connected to Pompey's theater. You're like, Pompey's theater? I thought you weren't allowed to build a theater inside Rome. Good point. You can't have a Greek theater inside the city of Rome. The old ways of Rome won't allow it. Well, Pompey did it. That clash against Greek culture we've talked about in these lessons, like everything connects. These classical kingdoms, the Greek influence, the Egyptian influence, all these different kingdoms are changing Rome. And somebody like Cato said no. But Pompey built his theater, his Curia, the statue to himself. So what's your problem? Why are you upset that Julius Caesar's doing it too? Is it just because Caesar is doing it at the next level? Do you get the point? Caesar's statue to the invincible God is going to get met with more when Cleopatra shows up. Cleopatra loves this stuff. You know, Julius Caesar was in Egypt for so many months, like 7-8 months. Sound like Egypt? Cleopatra the Seventh arrives in Rome. She is the mother of Julius Caesar's son. She brings the royal entourage, the scholars, the priests, her brother/husband, King Ptolemy the 14th, and her infant son, well, he'd be a toddler at this point, King Ptolemy the 15th. But we call him Caesarion. Why? He's Caesar's child. Or she insists. There is no Roman marriage, but you know, we got time for that, right? What could possibly go wrong? When Caesar sets them up across the Tiber River in his private estates, Cleopatra operates like she's the reigning Hellenistic monarch. Why not the Egyptian monarch? Because she is she is the Egyptian monarch, but she is the descendant of the Hellenistic. She is the descendant, 13th generation away from Alexander the Great's friend, King Ptolemy. And they would rule Alexander's old empire, wouldn't they? Is this a chance Cleopatra can bring it all back? So she's going to host opulent banquets, and she's going to invite senators. She's going to influence Caesar's Eastern policies for her benefit, because she is more than a queen, more than a pharaoh. She is the goddess Isis. Oh, living goddesses and gods, which Rome doesn't really quite have yet. Cicero, now he's writing. What do you think he writes? What do you think Cicero's reaction is? What's your reaction, by the way? Cleopatra, he's writing to Atticus, and he refuses to even say Cleopatra. He just calls her Regina, the queen, like an insult. And when Caesar puts a golden statue of Cleopatra, where is he going to put it, by the way? Put it in the comments if you haven't thought how this is going. He's going to put it in the Temple of Venus. The Temple of Venus, this is the temple that Julius Caesar's clan originally was a part of. You got to go back to lesson 43. Aeneas, the beginning of all of this. Aeneas is a descendant of Venus, and that's where patricians come from. So the Egyptian queen is now up equal with Venus. Do you get the message here? Does it look like Caesar's building a dynasty? Does it look like he's pointing to the east to claim all that Alexander the Great had, plus add Rome? And won't Caesarion help? Caesarion, King Ptolemy the 15th, the son of Cleopatra, the son of Julius Caesar. No, No, guys, under Roman law, Caesarion is peregrinus. He is a foreigner. His mother is not a citizen, not a Roman citizen. There is no legal standing here. Roman adoptio. What is adoptio? Like our word adoption. Adoption is very important to the Romans. If you have adoption, you are in. You are in the family. You are the son. You are the citizen. But the law doesn't allow it. Do you think Caesar might change the law? He might get around to it eventually. So what Caesar writes in his will, his secret private will, is that he's adopting his young grandnephew Octavius. At the time, he's 15 years old. Gaius Octavius, part of the family. Octavian is very talented. Later, we will call him Augustus, so you'll have to wait for Octavian to grow up a little bit more. But he's in the will as the adopted son of Julius Caesar, the heir to the family fortune to become paterfamilias. So he has a will. It's clear. Caesar is solving the problem of succession, even though this is a republic and it's not supposed to matter. But late 45 BC, a formal delegation of senators presents Caesar with an honor. Caesar remains seated like a sovereign, and the senators conduct business looking up. Now, between late January and early February of 44 BC, the Senate finally, officially appoints Julius Caesar to a higher title. What is it going to be? Dictator Perpetuo. That is dictator in perpetuity, dictator for life. The point is the 6-month max is gone. Caesar has converted the dictatorship into his permanent title. And the temporary safeguard, the power limit, if it's out, does that make this like a monarchy? Is the legal death certificate of the Roman Republic finally signed by the Senate itself? It's been coming for generations, for decades at this point. The senators reach into their pockets, pay for some things with coins. If it was 1971, they'd see Dwight Eisenhower. In 1962, Ben Franklin. But what happened after 1962? In 1963, John F. Kennedy was shot. And almost immediately in 1964, they made coins with his likeness on them. That's the quickest the United States has ever put an image of a person, a president, onto the coins, because Kennedy was shot. They immediately made the honor. Julius Caesar's face is on the coins now while he's alive. What does that mean? The silver denarius in 44 BC now says Dictator Perpetuo. He's got laurel around his face, around his image, and the Roman mint producing this series of silver denarii. Now, for centuries, the Roman coinage only would put gods, mythical creatures, dead ancestors. These coins are now showing the face of Julius Caesar. He's alive. He's got laurel. Nothing's higher than laurel. Sharpening knives. Conspirators are meeting in private within moments of these coins being circulated. There's no coincidence. This is coming to be the end. And the famous episode, Marc Antony, we forgot to watch Marc Antony. He's at the Lupercalia in 44 BC in February. It's an ancient pastoral festival. It's kind of chaotic, but Caesar's watching from a golden throne. Marc Antony approaches Caesar publicly in this festival holding a diadem. That's like a white ribbon of Hellenistic kingship. And he offers it to Caesar like a crown, diadem. Caesar refuses it, and he pushes it away and orders that it be sent to the temple of Jupiter. And the crowd cheers. What does that mean? Everyone watching, like senators watching. It's choreography. It's theater. This is theater. You don't offer a crown by accident. Caesar used Marc Antony, his loyal magister equitum, his master of the horse, at the time as co-consul. Caesar is kind of testing the crowd to measure, are they going to cheer? Would they cheer for a monarch, for a coronation? They cheered the refusal of it. They cheered his magnanimity. They cheered his virtue. Isn't that what we're trying to do? But nobody missed. You don't miss it. You're a classical scholar. We want to make you a classical scholar, expert at the government, at the republic. Do you know when the republic is completely gone? Is it already gone right now? Please add your comment, your opinion, because we've got a big lesson coming next. The final question is simple for those sharpening their knives, or for any senator thinking about libertas. What does that mean? It means you're free from domination, like our liberty. So to have libertas, you're not a subject of tyrannus. Tyrannus, a tyrant, a domination. You have rights. You have an honor. You are people. Res publica is where we get the word republic. It means a matter of the people. The government is the people. Caesar is making this all impossible. He has packed the Senate. He has reformed. In his victory laps, the kingmaker syndrome, the Caesar sensation is huge. But it's going well. Rome is a good place. And Julius Caesar's good friend Brutus, his close family connection, Brutus feels, well, what does he feel? His long-standing friendship with Caesar is rooted in a long-standing relationship. Julius Caesar had an affair with Brutus's mom. Brutus's mother, Servilia, they go way back, decades. And people even rumor that Caesar could be Brutus's biological father. The math is tricky on that, but that's what everybody said. It was assumed. And for them to be so close, and for Caesar to pardon Brutus after Pharsalus, the battle, he gave the governorship of Gaul, Cispalline Gaul, special honors and wealth and power for Brutus. And Brutus's family, we already said, it goes way back. But for Brutus, he's conflicted. These honors are just like chains for his family. His virtue. Virtue. What is Brutus going to do? Is he sharpening a knife? As we close, there are 60 men sharpening their knives. They're sharpening their philosophy. They're talking about tyranny. They are the liberatores. Or is Brutus going to be the one who knows the path to join the liberatores and say that killing a king, killing a tyrant, will restore the republic and libertas? We will deal with that in lesson 55. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your journey. These kingdoms rise and fall. Power fades, but virtue endures.